Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Connections program Broken Hill virtual service visit. I'd like to introduce Anne Winston, State Leader for Regional New South Wales. Hi, Anne, how are you doing?
Good, thanks. Welcome everybody too. So I'm pretty excited about the presentation of Connections program in Broken Hill. It's a real passion for me. But first of all, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, and we pay respect to the elders past, present and future, for they hold the memories, the culture, dreams of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. We recognise and respect their culture, heritage, beliefs and continual relationship with the land. We recognise the importance of the young people who are future leaders. So welcome everyone. The Connections program is a program that actually started over a cup of coffee, would you believe? I had a coffee with the Director of Health in the Far West. And in that conversation, she highlighted the fact the percentage of people that presented after hours in emergency service was extremely high. And the people that were presenting were actually lonely. And loneliness has such an impact on mental health. So loneliness and isolation was a huge problem within Broken Hill. So we went out to source some funds and then we developed this awesome program and called Connections. And actually Jenna Bottrell, she's area manager in Broken Hill, who's going to give you a good rundown on about what had happens and the outcomes of this awesome program. Thank you, Jenna. Would you like to give our screen?
Thanks, Anne, and welcome everyone. I'd just like to also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, and in Broken Hill, it's the land of the Barkindji people of the Willakali Nation. So I guess to give you an idea of Connections and where we are and where we're based, welcome to Broken Hill. It's our hometown. Rain's optional, and sometimes our dust storms, like the picture at the top there, turn day to night. But we love the place we call home. We're located on the SA border, and we have a population of about 17,000 people. In terms of mental health, the Far West LHD has a number of mental health units in the hospital, which is a 6-bed unit and a 10-bed mental health subacute unit. This is operated in partnership with Health and an NGO. We have 3 community-based mental health, drug and alcohol teams across Broken Hill, Derton, and a CAMS team in Broken Hill. Broken Hill and the surrounding district are also serviced by several NGOs and CMO-based organisations such as Mission Australia, and we offer a range of services such as HASI, CLS, social emotional wellbeing support programs. Go to the next slide. So Anne mentioned about loneliness, and that's what Connections is based on. And I think to give you an idea around the impact of loneliness, it's described as an interaction of individuals' personal characteristics, their lack of social network and their own appraisal of their social network. Someone can look really connected and really popular and have a lot of people around them, but still feel incredibly lonely and incredibly isolated. Relationships Australia in 2014 reported that 9% of Australians experience loneliness at any one time. And that number of people transitioning in and out of loneliness has increased since 2000 and even more so since COVID-19. Loneliness is associated with mental ill health. When we feel isolated, we tend to feel bad. And sometimes these feelings become so intense, resulting in self-harm or help-seeking behaviours involving emergency services and emergency departments. For example, over 50% of the calls to the mental health emergency care line, which services Broken Hill from Orange, are made between 5 and 11:30 p.m. Another example of the impact of loneliness on emergency services in the Far West occurred in 2015 when an individual made over 20 calls each night to both the mental health emergency care line, Lifeline, rang police and ambulance at least every evening, resulting in presentations to the ED most nights for approximately 2 months. Contact with these services was really minimal though, when they were engaged with services during the day. Sometimes the common belief that when you live in a small town, people assume you know everyone and you have a lot of friends and you have a lot of connections, but it's not the case. And after hours certainly makes it harder for people to access that face-to-face support and connection. Next slide, please. So as Anne mentioned, over a cup of coffee, a conversation started around loneliness, isolation, and people presenting to emergency services when they didn't really need acute care. They just needed a conversation, maybe a cup of coffee, maybe a sandwich, and someone to connect with, especially after hours. So that conversation included conversation around Broken Hill, the gaps in service delivery, the impacts of loneliness, and why and how it was becoming an issue for so many. As I said, Broken Hill is located in the state's far west. We are geographically isolated already, and our services only open during the day. The majority of services in Broken Hill really did leave people alone for that face-to-face support after hours. Studies have found that a significant impact on mental health and physical health can actually affect your physical health. So when you feel lonely, it can actually affect your heart, your body. It can have a huge amount of effects, not just your mental health. So basically, after that conversation, we got thinking about how we could create connections, but a natural connection. So we decided that the service needed to operate after hours, and it needed to be flexible enough for people to be able to attend when they were experiencing loneliness, not book in, not have to complete a full assessment, not have to meet a certain criteria, just be over 18 and wanting to connect with people. Then we thought about who would be best to connect with people that are lonely and who would be best to, I guess, reach out and help people on their recovery journey. And the idea of peer support work came to mind. So peer support workers are people that have a lived experience of mental ill health and can help each other on their shared journey to recovery by using that lived experience to inspire hope in other people. So Connections is fully ran by a team of peer support workers. To recruit those, we really had to put out information sessions in Broken Hill and talk about peer work and talk about what it meant to inspire others through lived experience. We've been lucky enough to have an amazing team of peer workers, and part of their role was to help design the Connections program and talk to participants and people in the community about what they want. So Connections runs on a monthly activity calendar, and that calendar is created by the participants. They get to provide ideas and input on how they'd like to access the program, what sort of things they'd like to do, what sort of things interest them. And the important thing to note is all activities are completely free, transport's provided, and we also offer over the phone assistance to people that may be struggling to get to that activity. They may have intentions of coming out, but be struggling to leave the house. So part of the peer worker's role is to work through with people on that, to help them make that step to connect face-to-face with other people in the community. We also decided that the program needed to act as a bridge between services and the community rather than act as a standalone program and have people become reliant on only attending activities with Connections. So part of the program is when people come to the activities, we actually go out and about into the community and introduce people to new places, new activities, new clubs, such as they attend the local AFL football games and get to talk to some of the team members and talk about what some of those AFL after activities look like, so they may be able to join local clubs. We attend local venues in town where they get to feel comfortable in local cafes, art galleries, the community markets. We've also recently been partnering with community radio, where participants are able to talk on community radio and have input into talking about loneliness, talking about connections, but then also talking about the importance of the Broken Hill community and staying connected to other people. So that's inspired them to be able to, I guess, share the participants' experience of loneliness and how there are services like Connections out there to help people. Next slide, please. So as I said, our main aims were to reduce social isolation by supporting people to develop networks within their community, provide informal, non-clinical after-hours support services for socially isolated people, and provide additional employment opportunities, reduce reliance on after-hours services, and develop a peer workforce. Just the next one, please. So there's an example of our monthly activity calendar. And as you can see, some photos of the amazing participants. The one down in the bottom there with the number 3 balloon. So recently Connections celebrated its 3rd birthday. Unfortunately, it was during COVID. So we were only able to have a small group of people. It was towards the end of COVID. But I think the importance of Connections is they actually call themselves the Connections crew. It's not a program. They don't talk about themselves as they attend a service or where they're workers. There's over 170 people registered, and they all call themselves the Connections crew. They kind of feel like no one owns the program, and they're all a part of it. They're all part of one big journey together, which is absolutely amazing. We've had people make some really good friendships and relationships from the program. And now they don't attend Connections as much because they're out enjoying activities in the community on their own independently, which is great, which is what we really aim to do. So we run Thursday, Friday and Saturday mornings, or Saturdays during the day, and then every second Sunday. And on Mondays, we have a coffee club. We've also recently increased that to a Wednesday coffee club. We found during COVID that there was a lot more people, especially in the older age category, that were feeling quite lonely. So we've introduced an extra Wednesday coffee club to be able to better service that age group during this time, to get them back out and about in the community, which is great. And it's also been a great way, I guess, to continue to support local business during these hard times as well, because as I mentioned, we go out and about in the community, which is great. Next slide, please. So did we meet our aim? So actually, I got my numbers wrong there. There's actually over 180 people that have accessed Connections now. I did this slide last week. We've held over 750 activities, and on average, 15 to 20 people attend each of those activities. We commenced operations in 2017, and we've been running ever since. Over 9 peer support workers have been employed since Connections opened, and they've received a massive amount of training and mentoring in those roles. And we've had a lot of peer workers progress to other roles within the organisation, such as program coordinator, a lot of mentoring roles, which has been absolutely amazing. And we reduced a reliance on the emergency department and health service. So one good thing to note is that when we reduced reliance on emergency department and health service, in the first 6 months of Connections opening, we did some data, and this is only on the top 5 people that attended in the first 6 months. Prior to Connections, there was over 549 acute mental health bed days, and they'd presented to the emergency department over 16 times. 6 months after Connections opened, those bed days had reduced to 195, and there were only 3 ED presentations during that time. So that amounts to a 65% reduction in bed days and an 80% reduction in ED presentations for those 5 people. If you're a bit of a more of a number and I guess and finance person, that resulted in a reduction to the LHD service cost of almost $761,000 in 6 months. Next slide, please. So I always, when we talk about data, that's always great, and cost savings and, KPIs. Sure, we always need those in our programs. But for me, it's what the participants and our community think of the program that is really the great benefit. So as you can see, these are some quotes from some comments from the participants of Connections. I especially like the one that he takes his calendar with him everywhere. So if he feels alone, he takes it out of his wallet and reminds himself of the good things I have coming up to look forward to. So to me, that's really powerful. That's something just as simple as a calendar. When someone's feeling alone or someone's feeling like they're incredibly isolated, they can look at that calendar and remember that they've got things to look forward to. There's people out there to connect with, and there's something better coming. Next slide, please. So Connections has had a lot of success over the last 3 years, and even myself, I don't think we all expected for how well the program would take off, but it certainly showed the need. And the team, like I said, have been incredibly wonderful, and the Connections crew, all the participants, their support has been amazing. And with all of that, we've been, it's actually then turned into, we've been winner of Outstanding Achievement in Mental Health Promotion at the Mental Health Matters Awards in 2019. we were featured on the SBS episode when they shone a light on loneliness in Australia and programs currently making an impact. We presented at the International Mental Health Conference in 2018 and 2020 and the Rural and Remote Rich Forum. We were the winner of the Agency for Clinical Innovation's Health Innovation Award for 2020. Leanne Ryan, our senior peer worker, was named as the winner of the Leadership Through Lived Experience Award for 2020 at the Mental Health Matters Awards. And we were a 2020 New South Wales Health finalist for the excellence in provision of mental health services. Next slide, please. And I always look at that and think it's not bad for something that happened over coffee. So I've actually got a video now to be able to show you, and to me, it's what really captures the program. The participants were involved in the making of this video, and this video actually plays at our local health service on the video screen when people are in the waiting rooms. It's constantly shared on social media, and it's been a great way to promote the program.
Connection started as an innovative partnership between the Far West Local Health District, Mission Australia and GROW to address the local need of social isolation and loneliness.
Coming here to Connections helps with my mental health regarding depression and isolation.
I'm not as withdrawn as I was beforehand. I used to be frightened to speak.
Most times I would just stay in my room in bed, not to do anything. But since coming to Connections, I'm more confident, more outgoing. I've made new friends.
I don't know where I'd be without them, because I get to go out 9 times a fortnight with a meal provided.
If I didn't have the Connections program, I'd be stuck in the house because I don't have transport.
Making connections with someone and having someone to talk to and knowing that you're not the only one that's suffering is a big, it's helpful. It's like a relief on its own.
If you get down, like a little bit depressed, when you come up here, it's all, it's just different.
It's brought me out of my shell. I'm more talkative, more confident.
Group speaking, yeah, that'd be my favourite activity. Being amongst people here, it's just made me not be frightened to speak and to talk to just about everyone here.
I get out to meet people and I do things that I wouldn't have normally known about.
The activities vary each month. A monthly activity calendar comes out.
We have meals, we have lots of different activities, karaoke, bingo, all sorts of things.
Yeah, well, them activities on there, I've never done them before. But coming to Connections is just start to do all different things.
I like the program, I enjoy it, and so I'd advise anybody, if you meet the criteria for Connections, come along.
Go for it, create a program like Connections, absolutely, because it'll help a lot of people.
It makes a whole new outlook, gives you a whole new outlook on life.
Thank you. And from all of this, I mean, Connections has been made possible by a lot of different people that have helped along the way. And I think for us, you know, when I spoke, I actually told the Connections crew we were doing a virtual visit, and they wanted me to say a huge thank you to all of our supporters, Peter and Sharon Ivany AM from the Ivany Foundation, the Far West Local Health District, And we want to thank everyone for the constant support, whoever has assisted Connections in any way within Mission Australia and the Broken Hill community. This is one of the quotes that the participants have come up with before for a previous presentation I completed. And their role, the participants' role, was to help find for quotes for reporting and presentations. And individually, we are one drop and together we are an ocean. And to me, that just really creates the atmosphere of Connections. And the picture you can see there is they often go watch the sunset in Broken Hill. And to me, yeah, it's just a really powerful photo to just show how important it is for people to come together and reduce loneliness and isolation in communities such as Broken Hill. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Jenna. I've got some questions for you in the chat box.
Excellent.
There's one here from Ian Davidson, which I think we may have to take offline because it refers to some urban communities. But Ian says, congratulations with what you're building for your own community. How does this translate to the broader community and particularly into urban settings? So I'm not sure if you can answer that whole question, but we can certainly get an answer for Ian on that at some point.
We often get calls about the Connections program because it has had a lot of interest around it and a lot of media interest. And we get a lot of calls from urban communities. And to me, I think the reason the Connections program has been so successful is because it was based around our local community, our need, and co-designed with people that are actually experiencing loneliness and have lived experience of that. So I think that's the most important thing we need to look at when creating programs like this in any community. We need to look at that community and that community's actual need.
One of the questions I have here is, how are your peer support workers supported to ensure that their mental health is maintained?
Yeah, excellent. So our peer support workers, Leanne Ryan is our senior peer support worker. So she provides constant mentoring around working with other people with lived experience, but also handling our own on a more, I guess, personal level and team level. Then we also have management within Mission Australia who provides support and supervision. Our peer support workers are also part of a lived experience community of practice for Far West, where lived experience workers from a lot of organisations around the Far West get together and talk about issues and anything impacting the lived experience workforce, our community. So that's a good way for them to, I guess, sound off each other and seek support from each other as well. And they're also provided clinical support if needed. But yeah, they're very well supported, and constantly we seek feedback around that from the team.
Cool. I have another question here that says, loneliness is the key driver for people to participate in the program, but what kind of mental health issues do you see participants experiencing?
Look, for us, we see people experiencing a lot of different mental health issues, and some of those may be long-term mental health issues, or someone that's going through a situational crisis, a recent breakup, grief and loss, losing a job, things like that. It can be quite easy when people experience feelings of sadness or grief to naturally want to isolate. And then sometimes once we've isolated for a certain amount of time, it can be really hard to get back out and access the community. So we do see people access the program, I guess, from more of an acute mental health perspective, but also on that very early onset or situational crisis. Another important thing to note is one thing we've tried to do is keep the program, I guess, away from the NDIS, because at the end of the day with the NDIS, to be eligible for that, you need to have an acute mental health diagnosis. And Connections is a program that's able to help across the continuum of mental health, where someone may be having situational crisis, but that may not translate into a diagnosis. So it's designed for anyone in the community and not create barriers for people to access.
A couple more questions. You may not know the answer to this one, but you may. Are there any plans for this to be rolled out in other areas, whether it be across your geographical area or other places?
I don't know if I'd say plans, but I'd certainly say big dreams. I think it's an amazing program, and Connections, I'm never been afraid to say it, that it's my favourite program, and I'd love to see more of them. I think it's a really simple concept with a huge impact.
Cool. And I have one more question, and that's around how the program is currently funded. And I think you touched on that a little earlier. If you could just reiterate.
Yeah, so we're partnered with the Far West Local Health District to deliver the program, and they help with governance and clinical support, as I said before. And we'd just really like to thank Sharon and Peter Ivany from the Ivany Foundation for their ongoing support. It's been amazing, and the impact on the Connections crew has been absolutely amazing.
Beautiful. I think that's all the questions we have. If anyone else has a question, pop your hand up quickly and we can jump onto it. But if not, I have. Cool. Cool. I think that's all the questions we have there for the moment. Great. Jenna, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And if there's any other questions, I'm more than happy to have them filtered through the team. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you everybody for joining us. We hope you have a great day. And if you'd like to know more about Connections or any of the other programs that we run, please reach out to your partner managers. Thanks. Thank you, everybody.